Aquí finaliza el horario de protección al menor. La permanencia de los niños frente al televisor queda bajo la exclusiva responsabilidad de los señores padres.
What are we? Are we Gen Xers? Is that what we're considered?
We are officially, yeah. No, we are.
Yeah. So we've embraced technology, but we can live without it, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of our thing.
Yeah. Like we could definitely, if it were to happen where we just lost, cellular data,
right?
Connect.
We wouldn't throw we would. I think we would just be fine. We'd be okay. It'd be kind of a bummer. I'd get lost more,
Sure.
I'm directionally challenged.
Yeah,
I guess as they say, but
oh yeah, me too.
My child who is 8 now, if you take the iPad away from her, she's not too bad because she doesn't get as much screen time as her friends, but you can tell it bothers her. She's like, what the fuck?
That is
smoke cigarettes because I only do this to make me look cool.
Hey, no, smoking is cool. Well,
it's all I got left.
Okay, yeah. Well, I want to talk about that, but
sure, yeah,
yeah. Anyway, so good. Hello and welcome to Firesign Chats with Angel, presented by As We Go Along with Angel and A&A Punk Rock Films. I'm Angel. I'd like to introduce a Midwestern rock and roll warrior, hailing from Des Plaines, Illinois, which is only 8 miles from Wheeling. And I want to find out a little bit the intersection between Des Plaines and Wheeling, which I know.
Sure.
But we occupied a lot of the same friend circles, but we never really connected.
That's true.
Until our adulthoods.
Yeah.
Through the power of social media.
Yes. Yeah.
We've become, chatting.
I always knew who you were. I always knew of you.
Yes.
And I believe I know we've been in the same room thousands of times, if not hundreds of times,
Yes.
And I've always been like, hey, dude, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember ever chatting. I thought maybe at one of the shows at Northwestern we talked, but I'll be real honest with you. A lot of the 90s was a bit of a blur. Okay. I think for me especially, but I think for a lot of us, it was kind of a blur,
Well, thankfully, I kind of have a very weird memory about things. So,
oh, good. Well, that's good.
So I could, whatever I'm missing in details, there's definitely something that might stir things up. But anyway, but yeah, ladies and gentlemen, can you please welcome to the Firesign Chat a rock and roll survivor, front guy and lead screamer for the legendary band Sidekick Kato, a family man and one funny guy, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Anderson, folks.
Honored to be here.
Yeah, man, it's been a while. I think the last time we saw each other was at 2018 at the old Chop Shop.
Yeah, at Brian Peterson. Remember when it was Swift Kick Productions before it became MP Productions?
I do, yeah, because he was doing shows out of Elgin, right?
That's right, yeah. Even before, I think he was doing. Was he doing Turner's Club? I never went to Turner's Club. I was a McGregor's kid.
Yes.
Went to McGregor's a lot. The Sunday night, Sunday afternoon punk rock shows.
The teen night. I think that's what they call it. Yeah, no. I was
which was weird because it was a sports bar and it was closed on Sundays. Which just seems odd to me. Whatever. But yeah, the Choppy Shop.
The Choppy Shop. And I think there was a game going on right before the show. You guys taking up the whole. Were you guys playing like some kind of
Foursquare?
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, that was a thing that some friends and my start. So I had a gig at a warehouse called ADA, and this was when I was working nights to bartender at Fireside Bowl, and so I would go to this job at ADA. I think it was something like the alternative distribution alliance. And it was, you know, what it was, but they had a lot of great records. They had everything from, you know, atavistic to touch and go, merge, sub pop, discord, like, you know, all the indie labels under one roof. So, and it was basically run by and worked, you know, all my fellow workers were friends. So we would leave with like backpacks of CDs and nobody cared. You know, I had a bitchin' CD collection for a while. And, you know, when vinyl wasn't all that popular, besides the 7-inch, you know, and it was a pretty cool job. And that's where we used to play Foursquare at lunch. Mm-hmm. And, you know, take 4 small squares, put it inside 1 large square, throwing a ball, 4 hungry players. Let's see what happens. You know?
Wow.
Get your square on. So yeah, we one of Kato's wishes, because Mario is a good dude who owns Chop Shop, and of course Brian Peterson, who we've known for a long time. We asked him, "Hey, it's cold out. Do you mind if we play Foursquare inside?" Now, people who worked at the Chop Shop probably weren't all that excited about it. They were cool about it, but they were also like, "What the fuck?" I don't think they've ever had anyone, you know, playing Foursquare inside the Chop Shop before. Right. So it was fun to kind of live a dream out of playing Foursquare back indoors, because we did it the year previous, which was the first Kato reunion show at Chop Shop, and we played it outside, and I actually lost my voice from yelling, because we played the night before the show, from yelling while participating in Foursquare, because shit gets serious, you know. Sure. Gotta be a true player. You play for the love of the game. And,
right.
You know, I ended up losing my voice was fucked up. Not that it really matters in a Kato type of atmosphere. I wasn't really known for having quality, pitch perfect vocals, so yeah, I was okay with it.
But a certain delivery, of course, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Which was also hampered by Mr. Todd Pott setting things on fire, because Apocalypse Hoboken played before us. He got his fucking lighter fluid all over the floor, so he kept slipping and stuff. So it was
no.
Yeah, it was pretty, you know, kind of great, you know, the way it should be. I think it should be kind of chaotic and messy and what it is, you know.
Which I think that kind of suits, like, I mean, I think that's kind of the aura around your group and that kind of scene. I think
Sure.
Chaos. There's definitely a swagger that I'd never seen in other groups. Like, and I want to talk about that because of.
Sure.
So one of the things I always ask our guests is like, you know, what are your first memories of us meeting, or, you know, do you have any memories of us when we first met?
I want to say that it was at when Northwestern used to have the outside or the shows in that little area. I don't know if it was sponsored by NUR or what, but it was either, I think that was you. I don't remember. really don't remember.
Yeah, no, that kind of draws a blank. I don't remember even.
No. What about Dumpsterland? Did you go to Dumpsterland? Did we meet at Dumpsterland? Do you remember?
No, that was Dave Dumpsterland's place.
Yeah, yeah, he did that. I didn't know if we met at the shows because Oblivion would play those shows.
Right.
Los Crudos. I think the Boll Weevils did too. I'm not sure.
Well, I definitely remember when you mentioned McGregor's. I definitely saw you quite a bit there because I think we were
That may have been it too.
definitely going to the same shows. But I have a very strong memory of, I don't know if we met, but I definitely we kind of came. We had an encounter, I guess, or just meeting up you remember Steve Zidek?
Yes, of course, yeah.
And I think your band was playing with our band, the Hee Hee Wives.
Gotcha. Okay, yes, I do remember that.
So, and it was like, I think I remember being like, oh, wow, like these guys? Because I think at that point, like I had no idea, I didn't know anything. I just saw the name Sidekick Kato just everywhere on every flyer. I was like, whoa, okay, like this should be interesting. And I definitely had a vibe from you guys, like kind of intense.
Yeah.
Would that be about right?
It's really weird because I think that musically, and I've always been like a big fan of this, or at least I really believe in this, that music is just a part of us, and especially for Kato, it was a part of us where we could get that part out, but day to day, the Kato guys and I are kind of goofy. It's kind of like it's kind of like Dumb and Dumber a lot. It's a lot of just laughing, doing dumb shit. And we had this side of us that were, I guess the tender parts of us, or the angry parts of us. And we got it out that way through music. So we didn't have to live life like that. Mm-hmm. And I think, when someone becomes I believe music is a part of you, but when it is all of you, any kind of person, it's like no one can be fucking angry all the time. Nobody can be serious all the time. Why can't that just be a part of you that you kind of express through your music? And then you're like, okay, I got that out of the way. Now I can move on to the next thing, or maybe have some fun or whatever. But we took it like, especially younger, we were ready to go. We were, come on, let's play some rock and roll. Let's have some fun. And I think it came across as cathartic sometimes. And it was,
No, definitely.
But we also used to, back then, we used to like go to, stores and buy tighty whitey underwear and blow smoke into the butt so it looked like skid marks and throw them out. So, you're saying about these really hard things that you're experiencing in your life, or you had experienced in your life. And then in the middle of the song, you're throwing that out. So I can see how it could be a little, confusing, which is great,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that.
No, I definitely picked up on that there was like, I'm a fan of John Cage's whole philosophy of like playing, like taking the piece serious but not serious enough. And
yes.
Worrying about playing it just right. It's like a fine balance.
I think some people take it too seriously. I think some people don't take it seriously enough, and other people play it just right.
Yes, no, but I do agree with that, where it's just kind of, it's just part of you. Yeah. I think that's I don't know. I think that's a lot of it. I'm somewhat envious and also weirded out. Milo, come on, Milo. Also weirded out by guys who are, and, are just people in general that are, living art. It's got to be exhausting, they're just like, I'm living my art. I think we all are, in a way, but to just have that, I don't know, it feels one tracked to me, like a one track setting, like that. I don't get that. I think we're just multifaceted.
I was going to say the word multifaceted. Yes, we are. It's like,
sure.
So I want to know, I definitely want to know a little bit about you, because obviously, every time we've ever been in any social setting, it's always in a loud place. So this is a really good time to like finally get to know you a little bit. So I want to know, like, obviously you grew up in Des Plaines,
right?
And what was your musical journey like in Des Plaines?
Well, I have really, when I moved to Des Plaines, with my dad, lived down the street, made really good friends with this this guy Mark and his older brother John. So John was a few years older than us, and he was into a lot of different music. And so it started off with, you know, your obvious, you know, Metallica and Iron Maiden, and which kind of morphed into, you know, metal and punk are very much, you know, kind of work within each other, I feel, in some ways. And it got into like Misfits, Dead Kennedys, and stuff like that. And I met a friend of his, and his name's Kyle, and he gave me a Joy Division album, a Black Flag album, a Butthole Surfers album, and a Alien Sex Fiend record. Okay. And I remember just sitting there, and they were actual, you know, wax, and I sat there with my headphones on at the family stereo, because my family were like, turn that shit off. I didn't have a record player upstairs. And at that age, I think I was like, 13, something like that. And loved it. Like I just loved how weird and different and great it was. And I grew up with 4 sisters. I was the only boy, and they were very much into, you know, the fucking hair metal and stuff like that, Bon Jovi and all that crap. And it just, I'll be honest with you, a lot of it I didn't like, because the music sucked, number one. I thought it was just bland and kind of dumb. And I didn't really feel comfortable with how they were sexualizing and speaking about women. Even at that age, I couldn't identify it at the time, but something made me uncomfortable with it, where I was just like, man, that's kind of weird, you know? Like, you know, I didn't get it, you know? Hey, it could be because I grew up basically raised by women. It could be that I'm fucking grew up Catholic, you know, who the fuck knows? Catholic too, huh? yeah, for sure. We actually have a nun in the family. My Aunt Terry was a nun before she passed away.
My mother was a nun too.
Yeah, it's yay, Catholicism. Can't support them, but whatever.
Yeah.
Not happy with it, but that's another whole ball of wax, you know. But I think that's what really got me into it, is just that it was different and weird. And I always felt different and weird, like a lot of punk kids. And I remember I met Joey Compagna, who was in Kato, at CCD. We went to CCD together, and he was wearing a Dead Milkman shirt. And I forgot what I had, something. Anyways, we started talking, and we're like, yeah, we should hang out and this and that, because we were going to different schools at the time. And so we started hanging out, and that's when we wound up at going to McGregor's after listening to some records and figuring out. We were very fortunate, you know, living so close to Chicago. Des Plaines is, you know, you're in Chicago within 5 minutes, you know, it's right there.
Sure.
And you know, we were like, let's go see some punk rock shows. Let's go check this out. And I think the first one we went to was at Medusa's in Chicago, and then we started going to McGregor's a lot. And we were there without knowing really who was playing. We were just knew we wanted to go on Sundays because we were going to see something cool. We were gonna you know, be into it and see, you know, other people that were kind of anti-conformist, you know, and punk rock and into all that shit. And it was cool. I loved it. It was so great. And a lot of people that I've met at McGregor's and still friends with today, you know.
Yeah.
And it have carried on throughout the years of you know, being in different clubs and shit like that.
So what was the first McGregor show for you?
Jeez, man, it was Citizen Fish, Cringer, and I think it was, I want to say Screeching Weasel, but I don't remember. Okay. But I remember it being Citizen Fish and Cringer, because I loved Cringer. buying the 7-inch. That was, I think, the first 7-inch that I bought at a live show. Not the first punk rock 7-inch that I bought, but the first one at a show.
Okay.
And that all kind of Milo all kind of blurs together as well, you know. Milo, come on, buddy.
Milo, do you have anything to say about McGregor's?
he loves punk rock. So my older sister, who I'm staying with now, I just moved in here, is she does a lot of fostering for animals, for dogs, especially. So there's it's an interesting mix here. Currently, she has 10 dogs.
Oh, wow.
It's fucking nuts, man. It really is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I love dogs. I'm an animal lover, so it doesn't bother me too much, but it's also like, damn. So if the barking happens, kind of par for course. You know.
Well, that might set off our Mochi, so
Right.
I'm actually waiting for him to like respond back.
Yeah.
But something I wanted to go back to, something that you said about like hair metal, because it's funny you said how you didn't like how women were objectified in that, because I kind of felt the same, even though I had no idea about feminism or
Right. No, I had no idea. It just felt weird to me.
Because so I worked at a record store in Wheeling called Hip Cat Records, which
Sure.
you probably, and this was the time when hair metal was all the rage. So there'd be dudes walking in with like the tightest acid wash jeans and like the big puffy white trainers. But yeah, like I don't know, like, and the thing is, I could never get into. I mean, I liked rock, and I was getting into classic rock, but I could not get into it, and especially because, and I'm all about optics. There was nobody in there that looked like me,
right?
Until I watched Decline of Western Civilization, and I saw Ron Reyes, and I'm like, that guy could be my cousin, like that's. I think I kind of. I don't know how what I mean. Obviously, like sonically, Butthole Surfers, Alien Sex Fiend, Joy Division, and all that, like hooked you in.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Decline of the Western Civilization. I remember watching that and loving that. Of course, Repo Man with Emilio Estevez and what's his face? Is it Harry Dean?
Harry Dean Stanton, yeah.
Alex. Yeah. That soundtrack was great. The Cramps live from, is it Napa? They call it now. What's the politically correct term for mental institution? Because that's how they built it, was a mental institution. So
I think we'll call
mental
it
health care place.
Yeah. Was it the Napa mental health? Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
We're the Cramps, and we're from New York City. And we drove 3,000 miles to play for you people. And somebody told me you people are crazy, but I'm not so sure about that. You seem to be all right.
I'm not, whatever. But yeah, those were kind of my like video introductions to a lot of stuff. At a Decline of the Western Civilization, though, was for sure one of the first ones. I totally forgot about that until you brought it up. And yeah, man, that was something that definitely where I was like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean,
kind of got into all that.
I mean, I saw that immediately, and it was like, well, where's the local band? Where's the scene? Like, I want to see Black Flag. And then you're like, they're broken up. I want to see the Germs.
Right.
Someone
give me a beer. Yeah.
Give me a beer. So,
give me a beer.
Damn it, somebody give me a beer. A beer, damn it, a beer. Damn it, one of you give me a beer. Give me a beer, you fucking.
So you meet up with Joey, and you guys are starting to hang out. What made you or when did the music kind of intersect with that? Or
so we Joe and I got together. Neither one of us had ever played an instrument, right? And we went to different grade schools, but went to the same junior high.
Okay. So
Joe and Jay Dean, who's the drummer for Kato, went to grade school together and were friends for a long time. So Joe and I, Joe had like one of those McCartney-esque basses that was, you know, the action was all messed up, so the strings were an inch and a half off the fretboard, and he had an acoustic and stuff, and we just started kind of playing with our buddy Pat Curley, who's a pretty cool dude, who actually came up with the name Sidekick Kato. He was in Sidekick Kato for like 2 minutes until we figured out he was playing Naked Ray Gun songs backwards. Yeah. We were like, we can't do that. Yeah, we can't do that. So Joe was like, hey, if we want to do this, I know a drummer, he's really good. And so Jay Dean, his dad, Jerry Dean, was an amazing guy. Rest in peace, Jerry. He was really supportive of Kato in the beginning. You know, got Jay. He was a guitarist and really, you know, talented guy. Did a lot of was really into blues and Taj Mahal, you know, all that good stuff. Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, blah, blah. Anyways, got Jay Dean, his son, a drum set, and Jay started playing when he was 6. And actually went as far, and Jay's going to be mad at me for saying this, went as far, but got him into ballet to help him with his timing.
Okay.
And I think that's something that can be said for anyone in Kato. A lot of people will talk about Frank. You know, Frank's a very talented guitarist, went to Berkeley in Boston, very skilled guitar player. But Jay Dean, at the very beginning, before Frank was even in the band, was probably, the main reason why we kept going and did so well is because he had a great meter, because he was actually trained. And Joe and I both wanted to play bass, and neither one of us wanted to sing. So we flipped a fucking coin to see who would get to play bass and who would sing, and I lost, so I ended up singing.
There you go.
That's how that worked, you know.
Oh.
And then we met up. Then in high school, we met up with Zach. So that was probably around 1989. And we had Zach, Jay knew Zach, and we asked Zach to join. And so it was me, Joe, Jay, and Zach for a few years. And then we ended up asking Frankie. So we kept hearing about him. And Frank went to another high school and was a few years younger than us to join the band. And that's kind of how it became a 5-piece. You know?
Okay.
So.
And it's funny,
yes.
I do have a sort of connection with Frankie because, well, many years ago I was married and my wife at the time was working with Frankie at the old Borders, if you remember.
Right.
And I was like, and she was like, oh, it's like, yeah, this guy, I met this guy, Frankie, he's cool. And he plays in a band. I'm like, oh, what band? It's like, Kate. I'm like, I know those guys.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's
another connection. It's a small world, you know?
Yeah. And what was your first, where was your first show at?
Our first show was in my grandma's basement, because Scooter, my grandma, who pretty much raised me, was very supportive. She goes, Tom, I don't understand it, but I'm happy you guys are doing it. Mm-hmm. And so it was great, you know. And I was like, Grandma, can we have a show in the basement? She was like, whatever, you know, and did the cute grandma thing where she was like, there's Kool-Aid, I made sandwiches. And we were like, I don't know how old we were. We were probably 13, 14, around that age, maybe a little, maybe 15. I don't think so. Like, I don't remember. It's kind of blurry, but yeah, probably around 14, 15. And we had the first show in the basement, but our first real show outside of one of our homes, because I think we did two shows that we called it Club Soda.
Oh,
and you know, I
never went, but yeah.
Yeah, that was it. There was only 2 shows, very short-lived establishment. The man brought us down, you know, gentrification, all that stuff. Ruined another club. Neighbors complained, whatever. And the first one we played was a Howard Johnson's off of the Kennedy Expressway, you know, and that kind of started us with realizing, oh, we can go and rent places and have shows. And it was with a guy's band, Sean Shipley, who you may know from American Draft. It was his band, and Sean was it was really great because we liked Sean. We went to high school with Sean. He went to the same high school as the Kato guys, and it was funny as hell because they had a light show. So I think it was the drummer's girlfriend she had like this light board laid out, and it wasn't grounded correctly. So every time she tapped the lights to switch the lights for the light show, she would get shocked. And Joe goes over to her and he goes, hey, that's really cool. You know, knowing that she was getting shocked. Like, hey, that's really cool. Can you show me how it works? You know, kind of a thing. And just to watch her get shocked because we're like that.
Nice, nice. Actually, I think there's a video of what was that band that was on they were on the first or the second Octoon compilation.
Yeah.
They're the very first band that's on there. Trigwater.
Oh yeah.
The name of this band.
Trigwater was cool.
Yeah, no, I really dug them. But there's a video from that, and that's how I first heard of Club Soda because had no clue about any of that.
Oh, I think that was at Skipper's.
Was that at
Club
Skipper?
Soda was what we called my grandma's basement. I'm sure someone else had that name too. This
Okay.
is when we were very naive to, you know, we hadn't played out anywhere. This was just like one of the first shows. We just called it as a goof. But after, it was interesting that you bring it up because that kind of ties in. After we played the Howard Johnson show, we met up with some kids from like Schaumburg, Hoffman Estates, and stuff like that. And they were like, hey, you should meet our friend Thug. He has shows in his basement. I ended up calling his dad the Skipper for whatever reason. And he would have really cool shows in his basement. And that's when like Trigwater, Gage, Captain Jazz, Friction, Pre-Braid, and Kato, and a bunch of other bands all started playing in this little tiny, you know, basement in Hoffman Estate, Schaumburg.
Okay.
Which is kind of crazy to think about, you know.
Yeah.
It's because Skipper, I saw him at the show in 2018. He was like, I can't believe how many cool bands came out of my basement. He's like, I was just having fun, you know.
Yeah.
And, yeah, pretty interesting that we all kind of started out, you know, playing there. And that's how I met a lot of cool people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is where our worlds intersect because yeah, obviously I went to school with the Kinsella brothers and the whole so I got to see the very first Cap and Jazz show. Our band, the Hee Hee Wives, got to play our first show at their basement, and then just obviously I started picking up all these bands. But
right.
And like, when did you? I guess yeah, as you guys were going along, like when did it finally start to feel like okay, like we could take this even more? Or it was just...
I think that was the biggest problem with Kato is that we never took it seriously. I think we could have, you know, I don't even know what the expectations were. We didn't really have any. You know, we were just having fun and we just wanted to play music. And again, that music was just a part of us, like I was saying in the beginning. So none of us really thought about, hey, we could make a living off of this or anything like that. That never really, in a weird way, that never really crossed our minds. But I think we knew that we had something kind of cool when we play places like there was this youth center in Rolling Meadows called Spectrum Youth Center.
Okay.
And it was like a big gym, and we played there, and there was like 300 kids there, and we were like, "Oh wow!" Like maybe we're doing something right, cool. But I think that's what really held Kato back was we never really took it that seriously. We just kind of wanted to make music with our brothers that we liked hanging out and drinking beer with and had fun with, you know, and everything else was kind of a bonus, which was very cool in a way, but it was also kind of, you know, if you wanted, and I don't think we did look at it as in a profession or anything like that, that would have been, you know, part of the downfall as well, is because we didn't take it very seriously. We had played shows where there had been like showcases or whatever, and we purposely fucked them up. It's just what we just didn't care.
I think that's
everything was a weird inside joke, I guess.
No, there's definitely, I mean, like I see you guys as like either like band of brothers or band of outlaws in a way, like you know, there's like this definitely, and I even in my youth seeing like there's like it's almost like a gang that you guys, you know, kind of gang vibe, which I guess, you know, kind of protects everyone, but also I don't know, keeps all the scumbags away, I guess, or
until we are, and it was just like that. I don't think that's why I really do consider Kato kind of punk rock, is because we really didn't fucking care. We didn't care. Everything was kind of a bonus. It was like, cool, man, that's great. We're gonna do it this way, and that's it. Like, we weren't trying to get anywhere. We weren't trying to do anything. We just wanted to have fun. Yeah. And that was it. I think as the years went on, different members had different ideas, but I think the core was always there, where it was like, what do you consider making it? What do you consider, our idea of being a successful band was always that you didn't pay for your practice space out of your pocket. You didn't pay for a record out of your pocket, or strings or anything like that. And we pretty much met that. So I considered that a success. We never made money off of it. We didn't live off of it. Nothing like that. But it was like, we made it to that point where we would take from the band fund and say, hey, we can pay for our practice spot. We can pay for gas. We can pay for, the van or whatever. And beers. And we don't have to pay for it. So that to us was success. And we were happy with that.
And I think that's the difference between. And I noticed that even when with the Cap and Jazz guys and that whole crew, is like nobody gave a crap about. Because there was a lot of bands that were definitely even and around our age that were like really trying to make it, and those were the ones that usually failed. Or kind of broke up bitter. So in a way, right. I think having that mindset kind of protected, because protected the idea of this group and how you guys,
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, especially in that scene, kind of felt the same way, and we all also knew that a lot of it has to do with timing, a lot of it has to do with luck, and stuff like that. And especially at that time, before punk rock became acceptable, I guess, we knew there wasn't going to be anything in it. We had a couple of bigger labels looking at us, and we knew that it was going to be fucked up, and that was it.
What were the labels?
I believe the Atlantic Group was looking at us, and God, I can't remember the other one. It didn't really mean anything to us. We put out our first demo on our own, and then we did Dyslexic Records. Jay Jackson was this guy in Hoffman Estates that started putting out 7-inches, and he was like, hey, you want to put out a 7-inch? And he was like, hey, I could use some help. Do you want to help me? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I was a part of Dyslexic Records for a while, for 3 years, I don't know, 4 years, something like that. We put out, he put out the Hoboken 10-inch, the Jerk Lessons 10-inch. I think that was, or no, Super Incredible Heavy Duty Dudes he did. And then the Hoboken Jerk Lessons 10-inch, with the guy in the cover with the finger and everything. Then he did Kato Displaying 7-inch, and then the Kato Hoboken split. We did Slapstick 7-inches, Jerkwater, One Nation Under. Just a bunch of cool 7-inches, and a lot of that happened while I was there. After I left, they ended up doing Naked Ray Gun album. And then we moved on to Johann's Face, and we were happy. That was cool to us. We were it was great. We love Johann's Face. Like, everyone knows Johann's Face. I love Sludgeworth. Speaking of McGregor's, that was one of the bands that we really loved was Sludgeworth, and to be on the same label that put out a Sludgeworth album was fucking great. Like, we loved it. It was cool.
Well, I want to tell the younger audience, in case people are wondering, so there was a time when major labels used to sign bands.
Yes.
And it just happened to be around the time that Sidekick Kato and other groups were coming up post Nirvana. And labels were like, oh, we want to have a band like Nirvana on our label too. So, and I guess you guys were not, they were coming looking for you.
Right.
trying to see what, hey, like,
Well, they saw that we could headline Metro and sell it out on a Saturday night, which we did, and they saw that, and I don't know if I'm sure we turned them off one way or another, if not musically, personally, whatever the fuck major labels look for. But we also, we're punk rock kids. We were wary of fucking major labels. We knew that they were going to buy shit just so another label couldn't get it and just shelve it. There have been so many albums just shelved. You hear horror story after horror story of major labels doing that to bands, where they just would grab a band, sign them, and the deal in itself is fucked. I don't, we didn't know, we didn't care, we didn't want anything to do with that. So whatever interest or rumors or anything like that was happening, it was always a solid fuck you.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, and you're right. That's what they would do, is they would buy the rights to your album and then just leave it. They wouldn't even fucking release it most of the time. They would just have it.
Right.
So another label couldn't get it.
And if they did release it, chances are it would probably just get buried, or like another text right off them.
We were happy when Kato got played on the local music showcase on Q101. I think James Van Osel did that. He's a cool guy. We always got along with him really well. And we were stoked to hear that. That was great. I remember we were featured in the Chicago Tribune Weekend Edition, front page of the Weekend Edition, And I remember my dad having that on his fridge, and that was cool. After telling me time and time again to like sound like Mr. It's like, why can't you make music like this?
There you go.
So it's like, well, fuck those guys, because I don't want it, kind of a thing. And it was a very weird time. And I know I have friends in other bands that have dealt with that kind of bullshit, and that's their stories to kind of tell. And it just seemed like a creepy thing. So don't do it. Do it yourself. That's always been the punk rock way.
Although nowadays, I can't tell you how many people are willing to just sell out, which is it's very
whatever selling out is. I get it too. Like, I get it. I get why you would want to do that. I have a friend told me a story once in the 90s where they were harassing a dude from a band that, quote unquote, sold out. They're like, why'd you sell out? He basically said to me, he goes, well, me and my girlfriend are about to have a kid and we need health insurance.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue against that,
Sure.
And it's up to you. I guess it's your choice. I don't really believe that there's such a thing as selling out. Back in the 90s, yes, that was a thing where you're like, oh, you sell it, but again, I don't give a fuck. It's like, if that's what you want to do, okay. If you can feel okay about doing that, okay, that's your fucking choice, whatever. I didn't want to do that. I'd heard horror stories about going into the studio and then trying to change songs. Why don't you add this and whatever? Fuck that. That's ridiculous and insane. Like, who would do that? You can't. That's something you can't take away from us. This is ours, and I think that's where a lot of the people who were upset about the sellout type thing happened, is because they were taking something that was very special to us, and as a band, it was very special to us. So it's like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do it with people who we trust and know, like Mark and Gar, or Jay Jackson, shit like that. So,
and you didn't have managers or even deal with any of that, or
no. I did all of the booking and talked to. I was the social one, I did a lot of the booking and pretty much all of the booking, and a lot of the, getting us on comps, 7 inches and stuff like that. I was just really social. I was, wanted to get out and do stuff. The rest of the guys in my band are kind of awkward and weird, and
somebody's got to be the face, right?
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately or fortunately, it was me. I don't know. It's just kind of the things that I like doing. And I was the one from, those guys are very much displays, hardcore displays guys, and they don't venture out much, but I was the guy who enjoyed venturing. I was the more adventurous, I guess, going out and seeing different things at that age.
Yeah, same here. No, it's funny. I tell, well, whenever any youngin wants advice about, music, for me, the big thing is always like, if you really want to make it, like, you got to learn how to hang. I think
Yep.
that's the majority. Yeah. Cause I can't tell you how many times I would spend at the Rainbow or at the Bottle on like a Monday night, just like closing out the bar and just talking to, meeting other musicians and
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Is if you hang out with somebody and have a couple of beers and laughs and just kind of bullshit and get to know each other. That's how you made connections, back in the day, and how you met like-minded people and friends and became friends with them and could get shows or records or things like that, which was really really cool to do.
no, definitely.
And
But
that's why I have a lot of 99.999% of the people that I know today and love today are people I met through music. That's why I'm always grateful for it. I wouldn't have met any of these people, if it weren't for music. And that's the fucking best, man. It's fucking cool as shit.
oh, I tell that to, I've told it to my girlfriend, that, because, and a lot of people would say like, oh, a lot of people. I'm like, yeah, because I've been playing music forever. So it's
Mhm.
at least 30 something, but,
Yeah.
yeah. And yes, yeah, I've seen a lot of people starting off from the bottom, obviously, and some of them made their way up and others didn't, but
Yeah. There's
I,
a few, and it's really cool to see that. And it's awesome, like to see that. Like, I'm always happy for them. And I think there's a weird thing in music. There's some competition in there, but again, Kato, we didn't have those expectations. We just didn't. I don't know if it was an insecurity or we just honestly didn't give a fuck. Maybe a little column A, column B,
Mhm.
but we just didn't. We didn't have that. We were having fun, man. And that was it. We just want to put out write some cool songs and hang out with our friends, and that's it. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I know a couple of guys who that's their job. That's what they do, and that's fucking rad. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And then obviously, speaking of fun, we were texting about a lot of the fun you guys had on the road and
Yes.
in
Yeah.
clubs and everything. And I'm curious, like, yeah, so obviously, well, the first time you ever played the Metro, was that a headlining gig or was that opening or?
We played out of 4 bands. We played right before Smoking Popes.
Okay.
So Smoking Popes headlining us, Jerkwater, which was Matt Skiba's band that he played drums in,
Oh,
and
okay.
I can't remember who opened. It was either Slapstick or Tommy Rod. I don't remember. Um, and that was intense, man, because that was like, to us, that was another milestone of success for us because we've seen a lot of cool shows there. We're like always wanted to play there. I feel like it's one of the best rooms that we've ever played. It's one of the best rooms to see a show, and they were really cool to us. They were really nice to us, and so the first show we behaved ourselves for the most part, because
Oh,
when you get there at 3 p.m., that's when you load in for sound check.
sure, yeah.
They just start giving you booze. Like they
Hmm.
just wheel it in, and you'll drink it, and then they'll bring you some more, and you don't play until like 9 o'clock. So
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
that's it. But no, there have been shows there. Like we played with L7, and we broke into their dressing room and stole their beers and pissed on their jackets. That was a pretty funny one. They weren't happy about that.
Yeah, especially those ladies, I'd be afraid they'd want to rip me.
Yeah, well, whatever. We were just whatever. There was a show when I drank too much and tried to get my balls to sing, you know. And I remember Joe yelling at me about it, Shanahan yelling at me about it, being like, "This is an all ages show, man. Unfortunately, this is the first time some of these people have seen a dick in real life, and it's got to be yours, you know." Like, which I was like, "Oh yeah, it just kind of sucks, huh?" And yeah, it was just fun, you know. We were just kind of like that. We kind of did whatever the fuck we want, and like just weird shit. And bands would see it and be like, "What the fuck?" Like we used to spin on each other's balls before we would play. Like we'd all drop our pants and spin on each other's balls, and then we'd go out there and, I think it was very confusing to people because then we go out there and sing these like, really emotional fucking dynamic songs, and again goes back to that just being a part of us. So I think it kind of threw people off, and I think that's why Kato was in that kind of on our own, because for the punk rock kids, the way we acted they loved, but their music they were like, "Oh, what is this?"
Yeah.
And for the people who liked our music and we're like, "Hey man, you got cool tunes, but man, you guys are like out of control," kind of thing. And they're like, "Yeah."
I mean, it seems like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think it's like, since the music is so, yeah, it's very, very, it's intense,
Yeah.
it's gorgeous at times. Like, it's almost like the antics sort of like, was like, it was that kind of like an insecurity of like, because it takes a lot to just want to be like, bare your honesty and who you are.
Yes. I just felt like something natural, honestly, to do that, to be like, man, I don't really want to talk to anyone about this, so I'm just going to do it through a really abstract way through music. And I think a lot of the frustrations, yes, insecurities, whatever we were dealing with came out through music, and then we were like, okay, it was like a therapy session, man. And then we'd be done, we'd be like, let's drink some beers and fart on each other, kind of a thing. And that's just what it was. And I think it really confused a lot of people, because I know some of the library rockers, who were into the, very quiet and very respectful at shows and stuff like that. We were just like, man, are they like this all the time? Like, do you guys ever cut loose and, dunk your balls in your buddy's beer and call it nut drop ale? Like that kind of stuff. Like, people do that. We used to do that. And there's the nut drop ale, the penis swizzle stick, and the chota rimmed cup, which is absolutely disgusting.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
That's like I think that demands a one-man show somewhere in Edinburgh. Broadcast by the BBC.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously you guys were having a lot of fun, which I definitely, in all fairness, in the scene, there was definitely like, people who took it way too serious.
Yes.
We saw a lot of tears on stage, a lot of crying.
Which is fine. It's
sure,
just,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's great.
But it's a little, and then, yeah, and then there was like the, kind of militant, like, this is our scene, like,
Right.
gotta make sure you're putting flyers out. You got to make sure you're doing, I mean,
Yeah.
so in a way, like, it's kind of like the comic relief that was needed. And
yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of it was, just us being us and playing the music we wanted to play. And the one thing we kind of took pride in was it's hard to categorize Kato, like, you can't really say that like, hey, at that time, maybe now you could, but at that time, I think we sounded a lot different than a lot of the other bands. Our attitudes were very much in the DIY scene and doing it yourself and playing with other bands that you liked and enjoyed, having fun, and just having it be a part of you. But yeah, I mean, everything else is fun. Whatever you want to do, as long as you're not hurting anyone, I don't care. It was just us and how we were, and I think that really confused people, because there was this really cathartic shit happening on stage, and then as soon as we got off, it was, hey, my watch is broken. You can tell, and you got your dick around your wrist, kind of a thing. And I think that fucked people up a little bit. They didn't really understand it, but that was normal for us,
Yeah, yeah. And so obviously you confused some audiences, but then, you guys had some seems like you guys had some deep connections with other bands, like certain bands. Obviously, you mentioned
Yeah,
Hoboken.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Apocalypse Hoboken, Jerkwater, Tommy Rot. Those were bands, especially Hoboken, we got along with really well. And if you listen to Kato and Hoboken, you could hear some similarities, but basically we're two totally different bands. But I think they also have the same problem where those guys are all very unique men,
yes,
can
yes.
be challenging to hang out with sometimes. But I loved him and they loved us, and we got along really great. And Phil Bonet, who was in Chair Accident, we used to record at Solid Sound, kind of helped bring us together, in a way as well. We had that connection, and so it was Hoboken Kato played a lot together. We'd go out do weekends, week tours and stuff like that, and it was great, man. Like we were really happy to find those guys. We were like, hell yeah. Not Rebecca guys were really cool
Mm.
too. Always enjoyed playing with them. The Oblivion guys were cool.
Oh, yeah.
And it seemed like we veered more towards that than, you know, any of the other bands that were in the scene. It was always kind of that thing. It's just weird. I don't know how else to explain it. It's
I
just
mean,
weird. That and Hoboken liked to drink,
yes.
and that was our big thing too. And we would get in a lot of trouble together, like you
So
know.
yeah, I'm curious. So because I didn't start really seriously drinking until much later. Like actually, when I turned 21, although there was one time when I was 19 where I got so drunk and puked in front of the queers, and that's actually that story is told in one of my episodes.
It was great. Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, like I mean, when did alcohol become the other band member of?
Right, but yeah, you're right about it, dude. Right on. I've never heard anyone put it that way. It's
It just
really,
came to me. I'm just like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's great,
yeah.
genius. Growing up, I'm an Irish kid, and so alcohol was always around. My dad was the second oldest out of his brothers and sisters. So my aunts and uncles were probably only like, or are, 5, 6 years older than us. So we were just used to seeing, people hanging out and drinking. I remember they had a keg at fucking Easter. I mean, come
Hmm.
on. So we were used to it. Never drank when I was young, little sips here and there. Never got like fucked up, right? My family wouldn't allow that, whatever. Um, but it started right away. Like the first time Joey and I hung out together, his older sister Jenny got us some booze, and we, hung out listening to Angry Samoans and Dead Milkmen in drag, drinking Southern Comfort, and threw it up and all that. And that kind of eased up a little bit when Kato first started getting together. Because we didn't incorporate that. So it was probably, right around the time when we turned 17. So it wasn't at the beginning, around 17, I think is when it really, 17, 18, was when we started drinking a lot. And Jay Dean had this place called The Lounge. So it was at his parents' house. It was a garage. His dad gave us half of the garage. He was like, you guys can hang it. There were the parents that were of the mind where, I know you guys are going to do this, so why don't you do it here so we know you're safe and you're not out, fucking around. So we turned this half of the garage into the lounge. We had a fucking air conditioner. We had a mounted fucking Marlin on the wall, chandelier, turntable, couches. It was beautiful. Cooler. It was great, And so that's what it became part of it. And then they got incorporated into drinking a lot. And that was kind of our thing. We kind of got known as being drinkers, and we were like, cool. We're cool with that, whatever. And it was fun. We had a good time with it. Those were the good times.
Yeah. Yeah. And then yeah, like obviously got to maintain that good time. I mean, I never had alcohol in my early on, especially with like V Reverse or even like the Vindictives when I was playing with them. Like
Yeah.
the idea of like drinking during practices just didn't come into me until much later,
Right.
playing with these other guys who were like, they're bringing 12 packs. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, I'm almost 40 at this point. So,
Right.
so I didn't get full on drinker until much later in life. So,
Yeah, we were definitely full tilt. There have been times where we couldn't practice because we'd rather hang out and drink. We've had shows. I remember we played this show at the Pit in Rockford, which was a skate park in Rockford, and we played so poorly that we couldn't even finish this. I couldn't even stand. It was Frank's birthday, in our defense, and I remember we were like, "Hey, we'll give you your money back. We can't even play." And so that was kind of embarrassing, and we kind of had that. We're known for that. I remember seeing a record of ours at Reckless Records, and you know how they have the little blurbs on it and stuff. It says it's a Saturday night at the Fireside Bowl. Sidekick Kato's playing. Tom's wearing pink earmuffs and can't figure out why his amp's not working. Is it because it's not plugged in?
oh,
Great live band, but make sure they ask if they haven't been drinking all night or something like that. To the fact that when we were on, we were great. You know, I think we were a great live band, but when we were fucked up and terrible, we played like guys who were fucked up, you know,
yeah,
and that's what you got. So you never really knew what was going to happen. And, you know, looking back on that, that's not cool to do. Back in the day, we didn't, hey, if you don't catch us this week, you'll catch us in another 2 weeks.
sure.
Was kind of the thing. If, you know, and it's a $5 show.
Right.
Of course, $5, whatever. If it was a bigger deal, you know, if you're paying what people pay for tickets these days, I could see being a little bit upset about it. You know, the attitude changing. But there have been shows where we used to have a band inside the band called Slacks, where we would switch instruments if we were too drunk, and we would just do that. And some people love that shit, and some people are like, what the fuck? And again, you know, that was kind of, you know, our party life going into the part that, you know, that we made our music of. It started interfering, which is kind of interesting, you know, and you could see that happening. And that was one of the reasons why Frank had a chance to go to school in Berkeley. Frank played guitar in Kato to study jazz guitar in Boston. And he took that opportunity, and I think that's one of the reasons why. It's because he was looking at us and was like, "Man, am I going to keep? You know, this is cool and great, but you know, I want to play some music." I think he wanted to do more. So
You want to do more?
and we were all for it. You know, go for it, dude. This is what we're doing.
Yeah,
kind of a thing.
wow.
But yeah, it got fun, man. I shot a bottle rocket out of my butt and at a show, you know. All sorts of stuff. We played with Wesley Willis. We fucked with him. You know?
Oh, what was that?
Which was great. You know, we kept whispering into the microphone and fucking with him and everything, and which is kind of mean thinking about it now. You know, and just lots of stuff. Like it was just fun. Like we just had fun. It was cool. You know, it's fun until it's not, and that for everyone else in my band was fine. For me, it became a problem.
Yeah,
and that's why I don't anymore.
And do you remember when it started to become obviously between you know, having bad shows, but like when did you feel like, okay, this is not fun anymore? Like
when it started getting scary for me was probably around 35. I just turned 50, so around 35 is when it got kind of. That's when I got introduced to hard drugs. It was around 30. And I started doing harder drugs then. Before I was a weed guy, I loved hallucinogenics, obviously beer, booze, stuff like that. It was when the combo of hard drugs and booze got into the picture is when, you know, my life kind of went into the shitter. Wow. You know, and I really wrote it out. Like I wrote it all the way to the end. It was I can laugh about it now because, you know, looking back on it, it seems like a different life. But back then, it was really scary, really terrifying. Especially the last 10 years of it was horrifying.
I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm glad.
Yeah.
How long has it been since? I know you told me over text, but
I have 3.5 years sober now.
That's great.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm going to grab another cigarette. That's not a, that's something that,
No, that's,
I needed to go through. I needed to go through all that stuff to get where I am now. And I am a chronic relapser where I have had periods of being sober for years, and falling off and going back and falling off and going back. So I feel like I'm in a good place now.
well, and it's, well, because, I mean, you've been in my thoughts lately, and especially there was that period where I was seeing you online, doing just messing with people. Like I think you were doing this like where you would get on it was like whatever the local weather
yeah.
station.
Yeah, I got banned from Facebook because when they'd have like the weather things.
Yes.
I'd get on there and I'd be like, hey, when it's raining out, is it kind of like swimming for birds? And stuff. Or, can you get pregnant? Right. I heard if it's a thunderstorm out and a girl's on top that you can't get pregnant. Is that true? Or talking about having horrible gas. And they ended up banning me for like, Facebook ended up banning me for like 6 months. And I just said, fuck it, I'm done.
Oh, wow.
I can't do it anymore.
I mean, it was definitely like, I will say it definitely made me feel good seeing some of that, just because I don't know, it's like kind of like, it would brighten my day a little bit that you were having absurd fun with just
yeah.
And especially,
and that was me sober, actually. So yeah, I was sober during that time. There was a very ugly period of time, where I misused a lot of my friends and acquaintances that I shouldn't have done stuff like that. It's embarrassing. And that's part of, my recovery now is to, accept those things. And, me being fucked up it's not an excuse. It's more of an explanation. Yeah. Hey, this is why I did those things. It's because I was like this. And it's embarrassing, and it's challenging, but it's something you have to go through and get through and really take down and tear apart and all that stuff, which is also really fucking hard. But you do it and you get to where you are to feel better about who you are. So now you can continue on with life, and a lot of the people that I'm not a big AA guy or anything like that. I believe in saying you're sorry when you were wrong, and most of the people that I have apologized to, and there's still a few out there that I need to do that to, have been like, man, I'm just happy you're alive. I'm just happy you're doing it, and to me, that's love. And it's amazing. I'm a really lucky guy.
No. And I've been wanting to talk to you over, do this kind of thing with you for quite a while. So it was really nice to see that you're at least, kind of getting yourself back up, or at least, letting everyone know that you're still alive, which I think.
Yeah. I definitely have. I got off the social media. I do still do Instagram, but as far as like Facebook and stuff like that, before the, Zuckerberg exodus happened, when everyone got, pissed off at him for being a spineless turd, I just was like, what am I doing here? I have a lot to do. I wasted a lot of time. I think one of the biggest things that I'm most upset about when it comes to my alcoholism and addiction was the time that I wasted. It's a time thief, man. And I wasted a lot of time. So I'm making up for a lot of lost time doing the things that I'm going to do.
Tato's house.
Tell me that story.
Is there a guy up front yelling?
I tongue kissed. No.
Like he knew you?
Yes.
Yeah, that guy was.
Tongue
He
kissed
started
Tom.
yelling at me, and I'm just looking.
Tom kissed Todd with the
A
tongue?
tongue kissed Tom. Did you take your picture
Oh, I
yet?
can take that guy.
Yeah.
Oh. Where
Now
you
I'm
going?
recording you.
Oh.
I wanted to hear your kissing story.